Oops. Hey y'all, and welcome to our workshop on academic English with the USC Aiken Writing Center. So, to begin with, what is academic English? So, academic English is a type of language that you use when you're writing papers, when you're writing emails in a work situation, contracts, applying for a loan at a bank, different things that require a little bit more seriousness. They're the best way to communicate with various audiences and groups because you're trying to avoid using slang, using idioms and cliches. You're trying to use very precise language so that it's able to translate to big groups of people, not just your friend group or people who live locally to you. In a contract, you wouldn't use the word y'all because someone from Philadelphia might read it and it would be a little distracting to them. It also shows off your command of language because you can't use things such as, when he walked in, she was like, whoa. You can use that verbally, you can use that in text messages, obviously, but you can't exactly use that well when you're writing a formal paper. You have to say, she was embarrassed, she was frustrated, she was taken aback. Those are all different ways to use that critical thinking and to describe what's going on. So academic English is very different than social English in that social English is what we use talking day to day. I'm using social English right now talking about academic English. Social English is how you talk with your family, how you talk with your friends, and you might use different types of English in your daily life. You may talk one way with your family, one way with your friends. Just choosing different word choice, even a different accent sometimes, depending on, if half your family's from one part of the country and you live in a different part, your accent might get thicker talking to your family. So one example of social English should be if you're just talking and you say that you like the book more. In maybe an essay prompt, in talking in class, you would probably want to say, this story is more exciting than the first one we read. A little clearer. If you're doing an experiment in a lab, if you're figuring out which light bulb to screw in, you would say it worked, but when writing up that lab report, you would say our experiment was successful in proving XYZ. Raising your hand in class, you would answer a question saying it's because they were brave. But in your essay, you're going to give a little more detail. The soldiers received the medal because of their courage. So some important traits that academic English has are currently on the screen. The complexity, like I said, it's just using the right words, using better word choice that's a little more precise and accurate. Formality, once again, those good words. Instead of saying, back off, you would say something along the lines of, go away. Precision, saying exactly what you mean. Instead of saying someone was like, whoa, you could say someone was feeling this way, or they expressed this, or they had a look of frustration. Objectivity is also important. Choosing words that are very accurate, especially if you're doing a research paper. You're doing research on what someone else did. You're not there in order to put in your own opinion. And it's the same with the explicitness. Not meaning that you need R-rated papers. It means to be to the point, say what you're saying, don't beat around the bush, don't hedge, to jump ahead to another point on the slide here. Accuracy and responsibility go hand in hand as well. The accuracy is checking your sources, making sure you're quoting correctly, making sure that you're citing. And you have a responsibility to your reader to do that. You need to be precise. You need to have language that tells exactly what's going on. Organization is also important. In a conversation, you can talk about one thing, then talk about another thing, and then go back to the first thing. People typically do that. In a paper, though, it gets really confusing if you do that. So just making sure you talk about all the stuff about the one thing at a time, and then move on to the next thing. You can do that by planning. So, do your outline, figure out how you're going to get this across, making drafts of your papers, or if you're in the workplace, your emails or your contracts. Clarity is also important, just making sure that things are clear, reading it out loud, free of grammar and spelling errors, making sure you use the right there, all that sort of fun stuff. So, it's good to know what to do. It's also good to know what to avoid. It's good to avoid most cliches, things like high as a kite, anything that has been in the song lyric, usually, and most things that your mom has told you. Same with idioms. Idioms such as break a leg. You're not literally telling someone to break a leg, but you would say that you're wishing them good luck. First and second person tense, unless explicitly permitted, shouldn't be used in academic papers just for safety's sake. Second person, never. You don't want to lecture the person reading your paper. First person, very rarely. Because generally with an academic paper, we don't care so much about you writing it. We care about your ideas, and you want to display your ideas and have them to the forefront. Rhetorical questions also should be avoided. It would be a rhetorical question would be putting in your paper, he lost all his money. Why did that happen? The stock market crashed. Just condense it. He lost all his money in the stock market crash. Don't make your reader say, well, I'm reading your stuff, you tell me. Contractions are also good to avoid. Contractions they're just a little unprofessional, a little informal. And also, if you separate them out, then you got 2 words for your word count, not just 1. Just saying. Phrasal verbs would be things like get off, go away. Instead of go away, you can say leave. It's simpler, a little less wordy, and generally, it's just a better word. Attitudinal signals in non-argumentative papers. That would be saying something that shows that you have a bias, one way or the other, when you're doing it, and you don't want to seem biased. So you could say, most reliable scientists say, just say most scientists say, unless you're talking about something that reliable people talk about on both sides of the issue. So, we're going to do some little work things. And so, just pick the best of the bolded words. The government has made considerable or great progress in solving the problem. So we would choose considerable because that is a better word. Great is a little vague. You can say someone looks great. You can say you feel great. You can say great about pretty much anything. Considerable means a great deal of, a lot of, a big amount of progress. It's a little more precise. We got or obtained excellent results in the experiment. So once again, got is a little vague. Obtained shows that you obtained it in the experiment. That's how you got it. Got is just a little bit too much of a catch-all word. The results of lots of or numerous tests have been pretty good or encouraging. So obviously, lots of is a phrasal, and so we want to go with numerous. And then pretty good is also, once again, it's vague, so let's go with encouraging. And encouraging also says not that the results were kind of Encouraging is a good, happy word. A loss of jobs is one of the consequences or things that will happen if the process is automated. Things, again, is vague. Consequences mean if this happens, this will happen. So it's more descriptive, and it shows actions have consequences. The relationship between the management and workers is crucial or really important. So really is a good word to always avoid. Really and very. Teachers don't particularly care for those, and they're overused. Crucial means extremely of the utmost importance, and it's a smart word. Some suggestions springing up from or arising from the study will be presented. Now this one is actually a little bit more at will. Arising from is better though, because it's simpler, and springing up from is a little bit bouncy sounding. Arising from is a little more formal sounding, and it's 2 words versus 3. So, this one, I'll give y'all a second to look at stuff. What we're going to do is the words at the top, one of them goes in in a sentence down below. So for instance, let's just do the first one real quick. Researchers have been looking into the problem for 15 years. So something in that sentence needs to be replaced. So if we look at the top at the words, we can see that investigate would fit for looking into. So researchers have been investigating the problem for 15 years. So I'll give you all a second to look over the first couple and get a little head start. So, our next one, this issue was brought up during the seminar. This issue was raised during the seminar. It is assumed that the management knows what is happening and will therefore step in if there is a problem. It is assumed that the management knows what is happening and will therefore intervene if there is a problem. Step in versus intervene. 1 word versus 2. Schools cannot altogether get rid of the problem of truancy. So get rid of is the same as eliminate. So throw that one in. The number of staff has been cut down recently. The number of staff has been reduced recently. It was very difficult to find out exactly what happened. It was very difficult to establish what happened. And we can actually take out the very too and just say it was difficult. Very is a little redundant. Or you can say it was, you can use a different word instead of very difficult. House prices have a tendency to go up and down, of course would be fluctuate. And you could even say real estate has a tendency to go up and down, if you want to be extra posh. A potential solution was put forward 2 years ago, would of course be proposed 2 years ago. Alright, so now we've got some sentences that just need a little tweaking in order to be a little bit more academic, a little bit more formal for a research paper or a formal paper or even a, workplace thing. Seeing that the plan didn't work out the first time, Jim decided to try something different. So, didn't work out the first time is a little long. Decided to try something different sounds okay. But I would change it to as the plan initially failed, Jim decided to try something different. You'd think it would be obvious that this study is unreliable since the company commissioned its own employees to perform it. So you want to take out that you. If you want to appeal to the reader's logic, you can say something like, it seems obvious that this study is unreliable since the company commissioned its own employees to perform it. And if you simply state something as, it seems obvious, people will take your word for it a little bit. Fortunately, the children were found in the nick of time. So the nick of time is a cliche. So I would say, fortunately, the children were found before befalling any harm, before they were hurt, without incident. Why did he do that? He was looking for a reason for his wife's death. So that one, combine it. He did XYZ to find a reason for his wife's death. Or, he was doing this to find a reason for his wife's death. Alright, so personal language is the first and second person. So we already did a second person one, but let's take out some first person. So one common mistake that some students will do is to announce what they're doing in the paper. In this essay, I will discuss the main differences between the English and Scottish legal systems. So don't tell us what you're going to do in the essay. Don't say, I'm going to do this. Just go ahead and do it. So you could change it to the main differences between the English and Scottish legal systems are X, Y, and Z. I have divided my report into 5 sections. So you can just take out the I for that one by saying the report is divided into 5 sections. I will conclude by proposing that all drugs should be legalized. So I would say this being considered, so I would make sure that you have your reasons, of course, first. This is why you think, and then say it goes to follow, or it can be concluded that all drugs should be legalized. The opinion of the present author in this essay is that the importance of the monarchy should be reduced. Just say, the importance of the monarchy should be reduced. We assume that's your opinion if you're writing about it. Although I am not an expert in the field, I have tried very hard to understand the main ideas. Please don't say this. You just said that you don't know anything that you're talking about, and now we've got to slog through 3 pages of it. Your professor or your boss isn't going to be super excited to read that, and you want someone who's kind of happy to be reading your paper. So, say something along the lines of this is a complicated issue, but an in-depth study can lead to some clarity. Yeah, acknowledge that. You've done research from experts, and it's super complicated. If you're talking about peace in the Middle East, you're probably not going to solve it in your 3-page essay. They've been working on that for a while. All right, and so our last slide is on cautious and accurate statements. So that's one thing that people sometimes tend to do. Words like all, very, or not very, all, every time, everyone, everything are very big words that should be avoided unless you have absolute certainty, or you're talking about something like everyone breathes air, or everyone needs oxygen. So, today everyone uses credit cards for all their shopping. Well, some people use cash, some people use checks or money orders. Some people trade produce. So I would say today credit cards are predominantly used in shopping, or most shoppers use credit cards. Eating ice cream is bad for you. So yeah, eating ice cream too much is bad for you. All things in moderation. But having a bowl once a week or whatever isn't going to kill you unless you're like lactose intolerant. So eating excessive sweets is bad for you. Having an imbalanced diet is bad for you. Every once in a while having a bowl of ice cream probably isn't that bad for you. Global warming will have disastrous consequences for the whole world. So the reason why that statement is something to be very cautious about is that global warming has not yet happened. We can't say with certainty. It's never happened before to that disastrous level. And the whole world is a big, big statement. So you can say global warming is projected to have disastrous consequences for the whole world. But since it has not yet happened, you can't say it will happen with certainty. Teleworking leads to isolation. Well, that one hits a little hard right now, but teleworking can lead to isolation, would be more accurate. Some people love teleworking and have a fulfilling social life, and they've really worked it out, especially when the world is normal. women are worse drivers than men. So once again, women are statistically worse drivers than men because not all women are worse drivers than all men. My sister's a horrible driver. My brother's better than her. My mom's better than both of them. All right, well, I hope y'all learned something, and y'all have a great day, and thank you for coming with me.